In the 1840s, the British railway system was quietly building one of the strangest crises in the history of time itself. Before standardized time, every town in England kept its own local clock set to the position of the sun. Bristol ran about 10 minutes behind London. Leeds ran a few minutes ahead of Manchester. When people travelled by horse and cart, this barely mattered. But trains moved between cities in under an hour, and the timetables were becoming impossible. Passengers missed connections. Freight arrived at the wrong hour. And on at least one documented occasion, 2 trains on the same line miscalculated their positions because their conductors were working from different clocks. The solution the railways eventually forced on the country was not a new technology. It was a new idea, that all of England would agree to live on the same time, regardless of what the sun said. In 1847, the Railway Clearinghouse recommended that every station in Britain adopt Greenwich Mean Time. Within a decade, most had complied. Time had just been standardized. Not by nature, by an institution that needed people to move on schedule. Today, this feels completely unremarkable. You live inside a synchronized world and barely notice it. Every phone, every microwave display, every office building clock agrees on what time it is. You set alarms. You schedule meetings. You know instinctively that being late is a moral failure and being early is a virtue. But this normal world was not always normal. It had to be constructed, piece by piece, over thousands of years. And the people who built it were not always interested in your well-being. To understand how the clock became one of the hidden machines of modern obedience, you have to go back to a world before any of this existed. For most of human history, time was not a number. It was a feeling. You woke when the body was ready. You ate when hungry. You slept when dark. You worked while there was light and stopped when there was none. You read the sky, the seasons, the animals around you, and the weight of tiredness in your own limbs. There was no concept of being late because there was no agreed-upon moment to be late for. Life was organized around biological rhythms and environmental signals, not systems. This was not primitive. It was intimate. Humans knew time the way they knew weather, as something you read and responded to, not something you submitted to. The first pressure on that intimacy came with agriculture. Once humans stopped moving and started planting, they needed to coordinate with each other and with the seasons in ways that pure instinct could not reliably manage. The Nile had to flood at the right moment. Seeds had to be planted in the correct window. Harvest had to be anticipated and organized. Priests and astronomers built the first true timekeeping systems, calendars, shadow markers, sundials, and water clocks, not to serve individuals, but to serve the collective rhythm of survival. The sundial measured the sun's position. The water clock counted hours through the night. These tools were precise enough to organize a city's labor, coordinate a market day, or time a religious ceremony. And this is where the story stops being about survival and starts being about something else entirely. Temples understood early that whoever controlled the calendar controlled the people. In ancient Mesopotamia and Egypt, priests announced planting seasons, declared festival days, and set the rhythm of civic life. The ordinary farmer did not look at the sky and decide when to begin. He waited for the announcement. The knowledge of time had been moved from the individual body into an institution, and institutions, almost without exception, hold on to useful knowledge. This was the first capture. Useful things have a dangerous destiny. Eventually, someone tries to own them. The mechanical clock changed the scale of that ownership completely. When European monasteries began developing mechanical timekeeping in the 13th and 14th centuries, they were solving a practical problem. Monks needed to pray at fixed hours throughout the day and night. A reliable mechanism could trigger a bell without human attention. But once the clock towers moved into city squares, the bell no longer just called monks to prayer. It called workers to their stalls, opened markets, closed city gates, and ended the working day. The clock face became civic authority mounted on stone. Time was no longer something you felt in your body. It was something announced from above, and you were expected to obey it. The Industrial Revolution completed the transformation. Factory owners discovered that the clock was not just useful for telling time, it was useful for enforcing it. A worker paid by the hour could be watched. A worker paid by the piece could be measured. Clock-in systems, shift bells, timed breaks, and production quotas turned human labor into something that could be sliced into units, monitored, and priced. Factory owners in England and America in the 1800s were notorious for manipulating workplace clocks, slowing them during the day to extend shifts, speeding them at meal times to shorten breaks. Some accounts from workers describe foremen covering the clock face entirely to prevent employees from knowing how much time had passed. The clock was no longer tracking work. It was disciplining the worker. Punctuality became morality. Lateness became a character flaw. And the man who could not submit to the rhythm of the machine was labeled unreliable. Schools absorbed this logic without question. The school bell exists for the same reason the factory whistle existed. It trains children to stop what they are doing when a sound tells them to. Not when they are finished, not when they are ready. When the bell rings. Entire generations were conditioned to interrupt thought, movement, and conversation on command. The lesson was never only mathematics or grammar. The deeper lesson was that your time does not belong to you. It belongs to the schedule, and the schedule belongs to whoever built it. What was lost in this process is harder to see than what was gained. The human body still carries the older rhythm. Appetite rises and falls in patterns that do not align with lunch hours. Attention concentrates and fades in cycles that do not respect the meeting calendar. Sleep wants to move with seasons and light, not with alarm settings. But the system does not accommodate the body. The body is expected to accommodate the system. Rest became something you earned. Silence became something you scheduled. The inability to keep pace with the clock became a medical diagnosis. And the anxiety of running out of time became the background noise of modern life, so constant that most people no longer notice it. You carry a clock in your pocket right now. You wear one on your wrist. Your phone displays the time in the corner of every screen. You receive notifications that tell you when to move, when to respond, when something is due. Productivity applications divide your day into blocks. Sleep trackers measure whether your rest was efficient. Deadlines mark every project. You are not just living in time, you are being measured by it. The system the railways forced onto England in the 1840s has become the architecture of your entire day. Humans once followed time because the sky demanded it. Then they measured time because agriculture required it. Then they obeyed time because power enforced it. The clock on the wall did not simply tell people what hour it was. It told them when to stand, when to sit, when to produce, and when they were finished being useful for the day. It was never a neutral object. It was one of the first machines designed not to serve the human body, but to discipline it. And it worked so well that we stopped noticing it was there.